went up to Duarte and he was like, absolutely not. This is not a surgery for you. You have diffuse disease. And then I said, well, okay, but I'm still gonna.
Hello and welcome back. Today we are joined by Jessie. We haven't talked about how Jessie got her care team because it sounds to me like she's got people from all over working on her behalf. So where did you start and where are you now and how did you get there?
I was very fortunate that my pulmonologist, Dr. Coley, got me in with a really reputable oncologist at City of Hope, Dr. Nishan. And when I immediately connected with him, I loved that he was open to the first time meeting, talking to my friend who's a pediatric neuro-oncologist at Stanford. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to produce this. I'm a producer by profession. Producing is bringing great minds around a table to see something through. And so I started assembling a team and as well as developing some relationships with people at MD Anderson. Luckily, Dr. Nishan is very close with Dr. Haymack and they're each other's go-to. It seemed like a natural table, so to speak. Everybody kind of knew of each other. And I then was sent a TikTok by my sister of a woman named Leah Phillips who had gotten LCT done with Dr. Antonoff. And I saw this picture of the both of you and I thought like, oh, those are rad women. Like I need to visualize them. And I started visualizing you guys. And that was really in January when I had my first infusion of chemotherapy. It started to say, okay, like let's chip away at this so that I can have an opportunity to discuss LCT. Well, in March, I was invited to this lung cancer symposium at Stanford, and I finally met Dr. Haymack. I also had fortunately been able to travel up there with Dr. Kim and then Dr. Nishan and said, like, you're doing so great with plan A, but we need plans B through Z. And this is the guy you need to see for those. And so Dr. Haymack said, why don't you come to MD Anderson and we'll do basically established care there in case there's trials you might be qualified for. And I said, I would like to have my primary tumor, I'd like to have the mothership removed. And he said, why don't you stay on your treatment? That is a very rare thing for advanced cancer. And I think that it's being oversold right now. So I like completely deflated. So 2 weeks later, Matt and I go to Houston and he comes into the exam room and he sits down with like basically my information, flips it over and starts drawing graphs and immediately says, okay, on the x-axis is this and on the y-axis is this. You have had a great response to therapy. I reviewed this and I may have misspoken before. I think you're a candidate for the surgery. And I said, okay, why? What changed? And he said, you've had a really remarkable response in that short amount of time. But what he had graphed on the back was that even if you only have 1%, 2%, 3% residual disease, that's still billions of cancer cells. And you could hope that it's early enough where the targeted treatment does kill it, but there's data now supporting that in some cases it's good to get it removed. And so I went back to Dr. Nishan and he said, that's great. I think you need to meet with the chief thoracic surgeon at City of Hope. And he was like, absolutely not. You have diffuse disease. It's everywhere in your lungs. Like you can't do this. So then I went and binged a whole bunch of pupusas and felt sorry for myself. So fast forward a week and I'm sitting in one of the conference rooms with Dr. Nishan and I brought my friend who's a journalist who hosts a podcast, Smart Girl Dumb Questions, and she can cut through the stuff right away. And she was saying, okay, on this pro surgery side is this, on the anti-surgery side is that. And they were real concerns. It was a hard and very sobering conversation. At the end, Nishan let me decide. I then went to Dr. Antonoff and I said, Dr. So and so said that I'm not a candidate. And she looked at me and said, what? Like, no, of course you're a candidate. And I was so excited that I scheduled the surgery for 2 weeks from that day. And I was like, I have to go. I have to get to the airport because my kids have their talent show in the afternoon. So she called me when I was running through the terminal and said, hey, I just talked to Dr. Haymack and we actually want to push your surgery back 6 weeks because we think that you need 2 more rounds of maintenance chemotherapy as well as 6 weeks more of your targeted treatment pill. And it will make millimeters of difference, but it might make the optimal result from the surgery. And I thought, well, I'm definitely doing it because the nuance and the like meticulousness of which they discussed my case and my care, I felt like I had really won the lottery there. So I don't want to say like surgery is the only way. I just had made up my mind because of your video. And so, that was something that I really tackled very early on. And I would fight with doctors about it and to a point where like I joke that they cancel my medical ID at multiple institutions because I'm such a pain in the ass. But it's just, it's kind of how you have to be.
Yeah. Your own best advocate. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I do think there's a lot to be said for finding the right fit of doctors, and, not everyone feels up to going and getting a bunch of opinions. But I always say, if you're not getting a good feeling by your care team, that's a sign that it's time to break up and move on, and we've always talked about in my family is we always want the A team, and if the A team means switching again, then we switch again. And it doesn't mean that the original team was bad. And,
It's a relay.
yeah,
It's a total relay. And I also want to put this out there. If for some reason you feel too weak to get a second opinion or it's not going to be right for your family, have a backup other than your spouse who can really get you there because, they may be quite relieved to have someone else pinch hit for a little bit. And don't forget that this is a this is a huge team sport.
right. Friends, family,
Mhm.
coworkers, I mean, everybody that loves and cares for you wants to help. I would like to ask you, so if you look ahead, what gives you the most hope or motivation for the future, especially in regards to EGFR lung cancer?
Okay, well, I can tell you one thing is that I have a friend who has pioneered the field of cancer neuroscience. Her name is Dr. Michelle Manji. And what she has explored and really put on the map is the notion that the brain is very, very involved in most solid tumor cancers, if not all. And as a result, and my diagnosis, she has started studying in her lab both small cell and non small cell lung cancer. And she is specifically studying persistor cells and what those are doing and how they can evade a lot of therapy because they harness the brain. And so knowing that her mind and her huge team is now thinking about this and studying it is absolutely mind-boggling to me and gives me such hope in the future,
Me
as
chills.
well as what Dr. Haymack is doing at MD Anderson in his lab. We'll be publishing a few papers this year about different ways other than TKIs to go at persister cells. And he said there's lots of people working on this. And the notion that you can have targeted therapies bring a stage 4 diagnosis down to a locally consolidated situation where it once wasn't even, a possibility. All in all, the future is bright. Sometimes it's hard to think that way when you know how anemic the funding for lung cancer is specifically. And I think in the end, we have to call on our community. We have to call our reps. We have to do everything that we can to make sure that we're pushing the ball down the field, so to speak, because I want those diagnosed this year to have a way better shot than I did. And I want to hope that our treatment and the information gleaned from, our tissue samples or our responses, our blood work are compiled and helpful in a way that leads to the next best option.
There is a lot of hope. I always say you got to live one day, just keep focus on the next day till the next best thing is available. Be sure to, if you missed the first two episodes, to go back and watch those as well, because I think you will be pleased to hear all that Jessie had to say.
I wouldn't be where I am without Young Lung Cancer Initiative. So thank you guys for all the work that you do.